Welcome everybody to 52 Living Ideas. Tonight is Confucius, the Analects, and we'll be covering chapter 2, verses 4 through 12. To read a version that you have, go ahead and type exclamation point in the chat, or I might go ahead and just ask Penny if she could be so kind to read her translation. And we'll just start with verse 4. Is that correct, Jason?
Yeah, I like to do is start with verse 4, which is talking about Confucius' biography.
Okay.
And 5, 6, 7, 8, all related to Xiao, the filial piety. But it may be a little bit long, but probably we want to extend a little bit. And then if we have time, we probably can go through a few more, because after that, there's a few very short sentence. So,
Okay.
Okay. So the first one will be short, and the second part will be much longer, and the third group will be varies depending on how much time we have. I think that probably that's the idea.
Okay. So go ahead, Penny.
Okay, book 2, chapter 4. The master said, "When I was 15, I set my heart on learning. At 30, I took my stand. At 40, I was without confusion. At 50, I knew the command of Tian. At 60, I heard it with a compliant ear. At 70, I follow the desires of my heart and do not overstep the bounds."
Thank you very much. That's not the usual version that you read. Is that correct? It's another version.
This is our Eno. It's a different one, but I have the other one here too. You want that one too?
If you would be so kind, does anyone else? Let me ask if anybody else, but I would love to hear that version as well.
Okay. The master said, "At 15, I had my mind bent on learning. At 30, I stood firm. At 40, I had no doubts. At 50, I knew the decrees of heaven. At 60, my ear was an obedient organ for the reception of truth. At 70, I could follow what my heart desired without transgressing what was right."
Thank you so much, Penny. Just one moment. I'm taking care of some things in the waiting room. Jason, would anybody else actually like to read their translation of verse 4, book 2? Okay. If not, then go ahead, Jason.
Okay, yeah. I put this one, suggest to just treat this one because I think that's the chance to understand Confucius as a person and his life. So we call this one the thumbnail biography. Okay, so I don't see anybody can write his own autobiography in this short, right? He only write basically 2 words for every 10 years for his long life. Okay, so it's worth to spend a little bit more time. And I also compile chronicle event about Confucius. So we probably can compare, okay, for this one. So let me read my translation, and then I will spend a few minutes, probably 1 or 2 minutes to explain. So the master said, at 15, I had an aspiration to study. So here, he said 15. A lot of translation talk about I set my mind, my heart to study. I like to explain here is he's not rich, and then he belonged to the noble family, the low ranking, even low ranking. So it's not possible he start to learn at 15. So I think it could, some scholars suggest he learned just like a regular noble family. He probably learned in the very young, and that usually the learning stop at around 15. So at the 15, you can consider as like, you finish your school. So that's why he said, at 15, I had an aspiration to study or to learn, and he want to learn Li, which is richer. So that's why 15 is important, because he already finished. Just like today, you finish your basic education to the high school, you set your mind to college. Okay, so I start to learn history, to learn philosophy, learn engineering. So I think that's what he meant. At 15, he set his mind to study. At 30, I was able to conduct myself in society. And if you do the direct translation, basically talk about I stand firm. You talk about 30. Erdi, he only used this one is no meaning, only use one word. Okay, Li means standing. So it means he start to do his professional work. Okay, independent. I think it means independent. He go to society to do some job. And the question is what kind of job he's doing. So some scholars suggest he probably start to do his funeral service for the aristocratic family. So because he is pretty good on the richer. So that's why he said at 30, I was able to conduct myself in society, or I can stand firm. Then he moved on. At 40, I had no doubt. So I think in common sense in today, people at age 40, you start have the midlife crisis. So I believe during that time, in the mid-age 40, midlife crisis probably start to kick in. That's why he probably start to talk about he's different. He has no doubt. It's not confused. He is clear what his life goal. At 50, I knew the mandate of heaven. So I think most of translation doing the same way, but I like to reference is on the book 7, chapter 17. He said, if I can live a little bit longer, then if I have a few years more, I can start to study book of changes, which is Yi Jing. So he probably gets serious on study the book of changes, okay, at around 50 years old, and which makes sense because that's the definition book, and he start to understand the mandate of heaven. I think that's his purpose. And then at 60, okay, so this translation, I don't know how do you feel when you read your translation. Usually it said, my ear is obedience. I cannot hear anything wrong because the words called 60 means 60. Okay, then called 耳顺. Okay, 耳 means ear. 顺 means obedience. So that's a very strange grammar. Okay, very strange word, like your ear is obedient. It's very strange. So most of translation or interpreter, including Chinese interpreter, will say, okay, because at that time, whatever you said, you will feel comfortable. That's why it's smooth ear. That's mean. But I don't believe this because it doesn't make sense. Until I read one scholar talking about that, I agree. Here he said this word, we pronounce as means ear, is a redundant word because at that time, this word could be used as the same word as this word. So it's a redundant. So basically, it talks about at age 60, I can follow. So it makes sense. He start to understand. He can follow he need to follow the mandate of heaven because when he was 60, that's the time he traveled around different states and they face a lot of difficulty. He even almost lost his life 2 times. So he started to realize he has to follow the mandate of heaven. Okay, that's one scholar. Okay, suggests this way, and which I believe that make perfect sense to me. Then later on, he talked about at 70, I follow the desire of my heart and did not overstep the bounds or the boundary. So I think if like 50, 60, and 70, you can see that start from 40, 50, 60, 70. It makes sense in this way. He starts from no doubt and he starts to understand the mandate of heaven. At the 60, he knows he had to follow the mandate of heaven. At the 70, he knows he can follow his heart. Okay, whatever he wants to do, he will never go wrong. So I think that was good conclusion for his biography. And let me provide some historical record about Confucius. I just list by different age, from 0 to 72, and you can kind of know what's his life. Okay, so to me, he's a very, I don't see him as a sage. Okay, I don't see him as a moral teacher, but I really, really respect him as a role model, as a person. Okay, so when his father, okay, let's start from the year 550 BC, okay, which is I think 100 years older than Socrates. So his father was 72 years old, okay, and his father married an 18 years old girl that had Confucius. So Confucius is the number 2 kids. The first one was his father's previous wife, and I think the wife died, and he has only 1 son. So according to that time, it's not enough. So when Confucius' father, at the age of 72, he decided to marry another 18 years old girl, then have Confucius. And of course, 3 years later, Confucius was 3 years old, his father died. So 15 years, he made his mind to study the 16 years old. He probably, I put a question mark here, but a lot of historical records said at that year, Confucius became the tutor of the so-called, I think Meng Yizi, okay. Meng Yizi and Nan Gong Jing Shu, okay, that's the son of the Meng Xizi. Okay, so that's probably his job as a tutor at the age of 16. We will talk about these 2 persons later. And 17 years old, his mother died. When he was 19, he has his son. He only has 1 son. I don't know he has other daughter or not, but probably he only has 1 son. His name is Di. Okay. So at 30 years old, he said he started to work as a funeral service. He didn't say funeral services, but a lot of scholars believe he worked as a funeral service. 35 years old, he was born in the state of Du. Okay, that's his home state, home country, and they have some coup during the state. So he has some problem because he is involved with the tutoring and the political. He didn't get a job, but he involved some of political. So he feel he's dangerous. He escaped to his neighboring state, which is Qi, and he get another job as a consultant for some aristocrat. At the age of 40, we already mentioned, he said he has no doubt, never got confused. At 50, he said he can study the book of changes, which is the I Ching. Important thing is at 51, he eventually get a job in his hometown, home country, state of Lu. I think that's his only time he get an official government job. And according to his disciple, after 3 months, everything just fits perfectly. He did a great job. But, and 5 years later, he was fired. And then he started traveling around and spent 14 years traveling around to different states. And most of his teaching probably being recorded during these 14 years. At around 60, he talk about he followed the mandate of heaven because he was traveling and he kind of feel tired to pursuing government job. Okay. At the age of 69, his son died. His only son died. And then his probably only grandson, Zisi, was born. So his grandson Zisi later on become Mencius' teacher. Okay, so Mencius is not direct disciple from Confucius. Mencius is study from Confucius' grandson. Age 70, he say he can do what he desired without making any mistake. At the age of 71, his favorite student, Yan Hui, and during the reading, he mentioned a lot about Yan Hui died. That really broke his heart. Okay. He young died at I think the same age as Jesus, 33 or 34 years old. His student, his favorite student died. 1 year later, at age 72, he died. So that's his lifetime. And that's, I think that's probably important when we read Confucius. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. And thank you for that background. Actually, that'll give us context actually for not just this evening, but moving forward as well. So there was a lot there. Just type exclamation point in chat or raise your hand in Zoom in order to line up to give your comments about verse 4, chapter 2, or book 2, I should say. First up is Madeline.
Okay. Hey. So I liked that part about the ear. And I was thinking maybe rather than obedient, maybe the word devout would convey it better, like my ear became devout. But I was also thinking, I remembered that in English, the word obey means something like turn towards the sound of. So I looked it up and it does indeed mean near or before plus the verb to hear. So it can mean to listen to or to hearken. So we have the same phrase in English. It's just that our root is more buried.
Thank you very much. Next up is Kevin.
Yes, I agree with Madeline's observation about Ersung. Er's ear, the sung is a Chinese word. It's smooth, or that's a nice age. You think about what's 60-year-old retirement, and you don't need join a career competition, look for a job, build a career path or build a skill set. So you also see the society enough as the individual see, okay, good or bad, politician, economy, it's got to calm down. Your heart to calm down. It's speak to yourself. How do you observe the world? That's 60. It's 70. That's back to that year. Surprised he lived that long. 72. That's few people that are maybe less than 1%. That's I mean that's basically Jason's last slide. After that's his own life, like from Confucius. It's beautiful. Then they see basically my mind can think whatever I want to think. I can do what I want. And back to another word from 60 to 50. Tian Ming, mandate of heaven. What's that mean? It's I know my life. That's how normally we see, even this year, we consider it's a half of life. You already right. You know what's going on. If you want to pursue vows, okay, I already everything is stabilized kind. And 40 is about your mind. It's 不惑. That's and it's not anything, no doubt. You already okay. I mean, education is done. My career path is set state. Just maybe have kids, family, and the parents at that time. The 30, that's early. Stand normally direct stand stand firm. That's directive. Yeah, that's actually Jason pick up in translation is about your maturity. You already know it's time you get married, set up your career. And between middle, actually 20. 20, 加官, this is like a traditional, maybe that's not happened yet, I believe. That's really basically it's like 18 years old, some tradition, they put some ceremony for, right? You already mature, you go from Africa, you go into, some celebration. 15, it's now we maybe 5 years old, we're going to start to learn. It's from, thank you. By the way, this is so popular. If I don't mind, I can use Chinese, 30 20加官30而立40不惑50知天命60耳顺70 I forgot that. Maybe Jason, you can pick up. They have one word, two words saying that. Basically, it's so popular. Thank you. I'm gonna find out.
Thank you, Kevin, as well. I would, just ask, is there a common theme that you see across all these years, reading Confucius's journey throughout his life? The thing that I would like to add here is something where seems to be always the pursuit of knowledge throughout his entire life. And so I think that that's a very important point. And if you're reading this, I think that, and if you're looking at it from a perspective of an ideal to strive for, that you're looking at knowledge as more of a virtue. And I don't think that this is, these are, if you'll forgive me for 1 minute. So I will handle letting people in. Yes, if you look at knowledge as a virtue, it's not totally, it's very similar to how people like Socrates as well, viewed knowledge. And as some of us who have been studying the Bhagavad Gita as well, you see the pursuit of knowledge as being a primacy as to way of kind of learning and integrating everything, all the things that you're taking in, and it's a good in and of itself. But I would like to hear if anybody has anything to comment regarding what they feel about Confucius, his overall, the totality of what he's talking about in this passage.
I have a question.
So,
Was Confucius Chinese?
so just give me 1 minute, please. Thank you. So, does anybody have any comments about that? Okay,
Wait, I had a question. How does this relate to the forms?
so okay. I will again, yeah, I'll handle letting anybody in
Yeah.
as well. So, oh, go ahead, Brian. Thank you.
Well, I'll just say when I first read it, it was a bit of a mystery to me what he did in his life. This was all, I want to say mental activity, states of mind. It struck me honestly as being very passive when I first read it. The only thing that was not passive was I stood firm and I had no doubts.
Right.
But then I knew the decrees of heaven. So that's, I don't know if you, kind of implicit for me in that if you know the decrees of heaven is you submit to them, you know they're coming from heaven. And then at 60, my ear was obedient. And then finally at 70, again, I could follow my heart's desire. He was doing things again there. But I thought, kind of going through this, there was a lot of absorbing things. That's just a very, immediate, that was my reaction. I had no idea what he'd done in his life after reading this. The other thing is that I am really surprised that he didn't start teaching until he was 60. This is really something. He was 15 studying really till he was 30, and then he was a mortician or funeral services for it seemed like a very long time. And then government, this short, relatively short 4 to 5 year government service and teaching comes very late in life. That's quite a discovery for me. And that kind of, I don't know what it's going to mean, but it certainly changes the way I perceive his life, and it'll probably have some impact as we go through these books.
Absolutely.
Let me have some comment on this. Okay, so I hope that Brian, you don't have some misunderstanding on this. First, his government job, according to the job title, we're not sure what he's doing, but his job title probably similar to the Minister of Internal of or something like a police chief of the capital city, something like this. So he take care of the security of the government. So he's not doing the teaching job, okay, like Minister of Education. No, he's doing job as probably police chief, and he killed someone who is something like. So he is very tough person, okay, doing when he do the job. So according to his disciple, after 3 months, everybody, the state become perfect situation. So of course that's a biased discretion, but that's first his job. He probably start to teach and learning at around 16 years old, not 60. So at 51, he got a government job. So I agree with you when you read this one, and everyone read and feel this description a little bit passive, but we need to know he is a humble person. Whatever he recorded is how he feel at that years, right? So he hardly talking about I did this, I did this, I did this. So one thing I really admire him is when he lost his job around 55, 56, he started to travel around and spent 14 years to travel around the country So this kind of person, we even don't see this kind of person even today, right? When the people at 55, 56, they got fired, they probably think, okay, I just wait a few years, I start to collect my social security paycheck, and then I can live a comfortable life. But he is not doing this way. He start to bring a lot of disciple and traveling around. That's why I feel like he's a great man. So,
Thank you. Actually, I want to come back after Suki as to, following his desires at age 70 and not overstepping, because I think that that's actually interesting in its own right. That's an important verse. Suki.
Maybe it's the English translation, at least from the Chinese version. Actually, I see him as a very contentment people. He just embrace what's happening in his life and fully present, like enjoy what's happening in each his 10 years, especially knowing that he didn't get a government job until 50, but he still said in my 40 I didn't feel confused. So what he must be very know what he's going to do, and was not disencouraged by the reality. And also the 50 part, I see that because he got fired, right? Actually, the Tianming, I see it as his mission. So he finally find his purpose, his mission. It's just like people want to get, like nowadays, people want to get a big a promotion or big title in corporate world. But in the end, maybe they found my talent is way more than this container of this corporate world. So actually, he became more entrepreneur even at the 50. So I feel like that he's slow. Oh, actually, I find my true north even when I was 50. And also 60. The Chinese word 顺 has another meaning. It's like in order. Or 梳理, we use a comb to comb your hair. So everything finally falls in perfect order, because in Confucius time, people study in order to get a political job in the government. That's the main reason people study. But for him, when he was young, I don't think he would foresee himself being a teacher, be famous like being a teacher. So it's like there's a better plan, greater plan than just being a student. So at the 60, that 顺 actually means every dots, every like mixed match, he didn't get a job, actually turns out to his favor. And also 顺 is water, water and pages. So you can see the time as water finally make a book. So looking back, all the chapters finally falls into a book, perfectly describe where he comes from. So for me, it's very natural. It's very encouraged. He's very like a brave man, right? In 60, he looking back, it's like I didn't know my life will plan. I didn't know there's a better plan for me, but I'm very like embracing wholeheartedly. So for me, it's quite positive. Not a maybe it's the obedience, that kind of or the heavenly, that kind of stuff. But for me, it's in the 50, it's his mission, and in the 60, it's his life story. Finally, you feel like, oh, this is what I'm for. I'm 100% buying this story. Yeah, that's my understanding. Thank you.
Those are excellent comments, Suki. I completely agree. There is an element of contentment throughout this passage, and so which kind of gets to the question that I was going to pose, is this idea about his desires, and he's not overstepping his bounds. And I was wondering, actually, I see, Kevin, you have your hand up, but I would like to expand upon that particular part of the passage after Kevin's comments. But thank you, Suki. Those are excellent comments regarding, you can see that he is content throughout this entire process.
Yeah, I agree with Suki. Like consider instructor, right? It's a little business like a McDonald. I heard if I cannot get it exactly date. I heard McDonald, right? The owner founder starts early age, get popular. And same to Confucius, right? And my comment is about this common usage 20 years, 15 years, 30 years. That's give guideline for as a human individual grow up. For example, if I'm 30, you as general, you should get married. However, in modern days, maybe not all. You saw tradition. No, I'm going to find a Mr. or Miss Right. Otherwise, I'm going to keep pursuing until 50. Oh, done. 40, maybe you think, okay, it's okay. 50, I'm done. I live life as is. Do you regret the 30 decision? Thank you. I just pose question.
No, great question. I mean, does anybody see kind of the evolution of their life actually in these passages? But if not, actually, I would like to, Kevin, actually, maybe, or not, or Jason, could you expand a little bit on the idea of following your desires?
You mean when the age of 70s?
Yeah, that he didn't overstep.
Okay, so basics, I think that if you, let's go back to Greek Western concept of four virtue, okay?
Right.
First one we call the wisdom, okay? Second one usually we call temperance, okay?
Right.
Okay,
That's-
so some misunderstanding of temperance is, for example, I know the potato chips is not good for me. So I use temperance. I control myself not eating that. But that's not right, right? According to Greek Socrates or Plato's explanation. The proper way we call temperance is naturally, I know it's not good to eat potatoes. So I just follow my heart. I just eat the healthy food, not because I control myself. The control yourself, that's the fourth virtue, right? Which is courage or fortitude. You have a strength to resist the pursuing pleasure and sustain the pain, right? That's the courage. But the temperance means you can do something willingly. And then, so for example, I don't smoke, not because I resist the desire to smoke, because I don't want to smoke and it's not good, so I don't want to smoke. I did it. Same situation. He is talking, Confucius now is talking about the age of 70, right? He already know everything. His heart is willing to do whatever he want to do, and he will not do something bad because he knows he already, fully understand, and whatever I want to do is nothing wrong. Okay, I think that's the idea he is talking about. Not because I control myself,
Right.
I get up early and I exercise every day because I suffer the endurance when I doing sport. No, because I enjoy it. That's the naturally I want to do. So I think if you consider this one as doing virtuous, doing the good thing, the moral behavior, I help my neighbor, not because God asked me to do it and I suffer myself to help my neighbor, because I'm happy to help my neighbor. I think that's the idea he's talking about. That's just my understanding,
No, and I appreciate that a great deal because it's this, he's achieved a certain level of enlightenment at this age, and he's able to actually have, kind of integrated it into his life to the point where it's a habit. So thank you for that. Suki.
Yeah, I see the desire here for him is more about the needs, not the wants.
Okay.
because sometimes when we say desire, a lot of stuff is want. I want to watch Netflix because I'm bored. I want to go to the social media. I want Wi-Fi. So it's a lot of time our desire is a mere another like a high, make us high hit or like a dopamine hit, just a dopamine hit,
Sure.
drag us from the nature's plane. But for him, her desire is sleep or maybe read something and move his body, very close to the natural rhythm of how a well-developed person's evolution line. So I see that the design, the design is more about what he naturally needs for nurturing himself, not these more wants, a lot of other stuff, attachments, easy to
External kind of goods.
yeah, like a prison, because sometimes we become the prisoner of our wants, desire. That's what his means. So yeah.
No, I think that's an excellent point too, is that he wants what is only good, and it enables him to achieve a certain level of happiness and contentment. And so that comes back to your first point as well, the ability to be content as well. Allison.
Yeah, one thing I'm noticing is that it seems like with Socrates, the idea of virtue is more about wisdom and kind of like how you're treating people in general. And with Confucius, you keep seeing this element of being filial that you just don't see in Western philosophy, that I think is really interesting and really important and really lacking in our culture. But also, I think the idea of, how he changes as he ages, I think sometimes like when you're younger, you're trying to do different things and live this temperate life because people above you have told you that this is what you're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then as you get older, if you're listening to your body, you're just doing it because that's what just feels right. Eating good food, exercising, that just feels good to your body. And if you're tuned into that and paying attention and following it, your body naturally tells you how to do what is actually good for it. But sometimes when you're younger, you're not even listening to that at all. That's all.
Thanks so much. I completely agree in the sense that knowing what to pursue in your older age, that only comes with a certain level of experience. And I think that's interesting in his final passage, that he knows what to desire. He knows what is good. He knows what is worth pursuing as well. Suki.
I also want to add, for people at that age, you can live until 70. They must have very good habit. They don't overeat, they don't overwork, they don't indulge anything. They have a very natural lifestyle, mirror to the day and night. So that's what I saw him like, very just gather the natural energy from the universe and then dance with it. So that's why he can live until 70. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Excellent points, everyone. Brian.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I haven't figured out how to put the chat yet today, but I do have in reading this, and obviously I have no background in the Chinese culture. I'm just reflecting on my own past and what I see around me, and some things I've learned through books, including in these meetups. But what I see here is that at the up through age 50, he's kind of busy with the family life. And when the biography, it said he had a son when he was 19, so his son would be 50. Or excuse me, his son would be 30 when he's 50. and that means the son is now out on his own. I'm not quite sure, with the wife, what's happening, but let's just say, that episode of life where you're raising the children, where they're depending on you, that's over. And so now he's turned to the next. At 40, that's when you're in the midst of this family life. And it said, I had no doubts. So my observations about 2, I stood firm and I had no doubts. That's the head of the family. And I have to say, because now I'm looking at my son, I look at my nephews, I find that the attitude, I don't know if they need this or not, but the attitude they have is that they're very convinced that they're doing the right thing. And they're committed to what they're doing. And they're going to stand firm doing it. And they had no doubts about it. Everything they say and think conveys, everything they say, think, and do kind of conveys this attitude. And I think it's an attitude of conviction that you need just to get through life now women are also bread earners, but as the father is a bread earner, you kind of need that attitude. Now, when that's over, and to some extent you don't have those pressures, then you can start to look beyond the immediate needs towards whatever broader, higher issues. The thing that strikes me here is that at 40, it says, I have no doubts. And then at 50, he says, I learned the decrees of heaven. So he had no doubts without knowing the decree of heaven. And that sounds a lot like my son and nephew.
No,
So-
I mean, I think that this is a very important point. The idea that you're able to identify what you're here to do. Many people spend their entire life looking, and searching and trying to figure out not only what their purpose is, but what they even like to do in certain cases. And this is an important form, of wisdom, or part of wisdom is that you no longer have society itself telling you and informing you what you want to do. You've identified what your role is and how to pursue what you feel is important, not necessarily even what your parents feel are important, because actually we'll come to that at some in the book as well. So that there's this idea that again, knowing what your calling is, so to speak, is a very important form of wisdom. So I see actually Will, I apologize. Yeah, forgive me for missing the exclamation point a moment ago. And then followed by Kevin.
I see this as kind of like a maturity kind of thing. Like it's just the way he sees maturity is kind of like it's becoming more stable, sort of, also more refined, and I have a boss who's maybe 20, 30 years older than me, and one day a customer was just being really rude to me, and I went up to my boss and I was like, this guy's being really rude to me, and he just like he just laughed, like it was like, because he has this level of maturity from just age that he's like, that's just like not a big deal, whereas
Right.
me being younger am like caught up in like, this is something that just like throws me for a loop, whereas him being more mature, it was just like, whatever. But I don't know. Thanks.
No, that's another form of wisdom, right? And that's what we're essentially growing into here, is that you start to understand how to accept things in your life, and even that is how to deal with other people in that process. So I think that the ability to not react to someone else, to not respond and to realize what's actually in your control, and I'll call on my stoicism for that. That's wisdom, and I think that's similar to the wisdom that here Confucius is displaying here throughout his life, and he's reflecting on that as well. So yeah, thank you for the comments. Well, great comments. Kevin, followed by Suki.
Yes, thank you. This really take time. We kind of talk forever, but I've got just
Yes.
bring my point to
It's important.
Alice and bring one good, but affiliate, we never, we talk less about this tradition, but follow your point, Jules, about I used to talk about age 30. You could build, let's see, I want to get a doctorate degree. I'm going to pursue the wealthy, I do business. Then I get married. And it's like either or. At 30, generally, it's time, my point, if the age come up, it's time doing thing, do it. For example, if one lady, they want to have kids, but however, the focus is career. 30 is no time. 40, oh my God, I need a rush. Maybe 45, too late. I cannot have kids. So that's regret I see in my friend circle. Thank you.
Interesting. Great comments. And I appreciate that, Kevin. I want to, I know we're spending a little bit extra time on this particular passage, but I think it's okay because there's one last thing I want to do after Suki's comments is just talk a little bit. Oh, and Brian, forgive me. Is that I do want to talk a little bit about his biography and how this may actually relate to, some of his life experiences. I know we're going a little long, Jason. I promise I'll speed it up.
I'm not pushing. I just
okay. As long as you're okay with it, then I'm okay with it.
I'm okay. You're the boss. I'm not.
No. It's no, but I think that this understanding, Confucius himself and, how he views the world and why he views the world the way he does is very important. So as we progress through the Analects, especially understanding his biography, I think that's critical. The loss of his mother at an early age that you highlighted, loss of his father, I'm sorry, at a very early age, and then his mother as well. And there's no time for prolonged adolescence at that particular, when those types of things happen. Suki, followed by Brian.
Yeah, I want to share the Chinese character
Please.
Confucian. So you can know how, from Chinese point of view, how we see Confucian. So this word has two parts. Bottom part is your heart, and on top it is choice.
We can't see. Can you turn your camera on, or you can share on the screen?
No, I can just write here.
Okay, that's fine.
Hold on. No, I'm not showing anything here. Just but this is the word. So the bottom part is your heart.
You talk about 4, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I can show for the group.
Oh, thank you.
And then the upper part is either or. Like when we say either or, we have other choices. We say that. So meaning when you're confused because you are in one place, but you think you have other possibility. You want to go elsewhere. Meaning you are not content for the situation, for what are you doing. So that's why that's why I feel like he's a very wisdom person. He just accept what's coming to him and use that situation and to any situation that's to his favor. So that's the Chinese version of Huo. It's like too many choices. Your heart is holding different choices. It's like, oh, I should be other place, even I'm in position A. So that's the suffering for a lot of the case rising from the confusion. It's too many choices, or we're never satisfied with reality, with what around us. We always looking for the future, or like, oh, maybe I could have done the other way. So, but he is just, I will use all kind of resources, materials now, I don't feel confused. That's the meaning of, in Chinese, at least the way this character is formed. That's the meaning of confusion. Too many choices.
Thank you, Suki. And it's, yeah, and actually being able to sort through those choices as well. Yeah, sort. So I have Brian then Madeline.
There. So I have basically two thoughts. The first, Joe helped clarify in my mind this. I see this as two cycles in life. The first cycle is up to and including fatherhood through through the 40s, where he stood firm and had no doubts. And you said, well, it is important. Part of wisdom is finding your way. And I think that's, to me, I would say that's I'd put it a little differently. It's making your way. Because I remember when I was young, I was trying to find my way. And that's not enough. You've got to make a decision, make a commitment, take a stand, have no doubts, and make your way. It's not just the finding and the following, at least for me and for what I see around me. Now, the other part, starting at 4, is he's got the decrees. I would say he knew, it says I knew, but maybe I learned the decrees of heaven. I'm not sure, based on the biography that we were given. And that's basically there are 3 kinds of truth in this second cycle. The first is the decrees of heaven. That's the truth from the past, the truth from history, the truth from culture and tradition. The mandate of heaven, the I Ching. The next is the truth around me. He learned the truth around me. He's obedient to the reception of truth. So it's something that's coming to him. But in the last one, it's the truth within him. It's the truth in his heart. And he can follow that. So those are the 2 cycles that I see in here.
I like those comments a lot, actually. Yeah, especially this idea that you're making this journey to understand yourself in this whole process. And it's kind of a way of, and that is a lifelong process. And yes, understanding the world around you, and then understanding yourself and how you fit in the world as well. And you can only learn that by actually acting, right? It's not just thinking about it, but it's actually taking action and integrating your experiences and understanding what is meaningful and what is not.
And I'll just punctuate this. There's a wise man, a person who's considered very wise in American tradition, Mark Twain. And he's also a bit of a comedian. He said, he said some things about being 50, 60, and 70. He said at age 70, I could say and do whatever I wanted because nobody cared what I did. Maybe that's the same thing as this here. I don't know.
Well, it is a way of making your way in the world at that point. I mean, so
everyone was just ignoring him at
exactly.
that point. Or nobody took him seriously anymore.
That's wisdom as well. So to be able to realize that. I'm okay. So we'll go to Madeline, and then Jason, you can go ahead and with you. We can close out.
What Suki was talking about, that character, reminded me of in Hinduism, the constant creation of mental desires, which of course is one of the big, huge things that the advertising and media industries feed here. It's like constant possibilities, but through buying things. And it also reminded me of the Buddhist term that always gets translated into English as suffering. But apparently it really means something more like mental dissatisfaction, not suffering in the sense that we think of it in English.
Great comments. I mean, no, and I completely agree with, how essentially we're, our desires are actually kind of almost manufactured in today's world. But this idea of suffering, I kind of relate it to not necessarily having a coherent philosophy of life and making decisions that are not necessarily that lead to some degree of cognitive dissonance that leads to a form of suffering. So I agree with that as well. Great comments. So Jason, would you like to go ahead and
Let me have a different kind of interpretation, because when I was young and the school forced us to memorize all this, and our test is to the translation to the modern Chinese. So since he said at 50, at 30, at 40, he didn't put like 30 years old. He just said 15, 20, 30, 40, 50, okay? And he didn't say I or he or whatever. He just say something. Okay, so we translate as a tuition schedule. So pay $15. That's starting to learn. That's a registration fee. Okay, 30 you are able to audit. You can stay, so you can audit. At 40, pay $40. You can ask questions, so you have no doubt. At 50, you know the mandate of heaven. You know what I'm going to test. You will pre-know, okay, full knowledge of that. At 60, you will be ear smooth. So teacher is not going to blame on you. So that's fine. If you pay 70, that's great. You do whatever you want. There's no trouble on that. So that's our translation, and it fits perfect in the language if you don't put the backgrounds.
It's interesting. It ended up at the same place that Mark Twain did as well. So interestingly enough,
But you got to pay. You got to pay.
so that shows you though that there's an element of wisdom in humor. So I mean, that was actually fantastic. I very much appreciated that. Suki.
Yeah, in Chinese tradition, we show respect for older people. So if in a banquet, always the old people will have the right to eat first. So he can pick whatever he wants to eat first. Nobody gonna compete with him. So that's why I see he can his desire. He can eat whatever he wants. And also don't forget that even in modern society we have senior account, right? Senior kind of discount. So
That's true. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes. Excellent. Excellent. So just really briefly, does anybody wish to comment on some of the events that may have shaped that Confucius's life that Jason had shared just a moment ago? I don't know if Jason, you want to share that again, but just anything in particular that may have jumped out at you, as far as whether life events, whether it's his mother dying or his father dying, and or this whether it be the timing. We talked a little bit about the timing that he knew the divine, and or maybe that something as far as being fired and traveling around China for 14 years. I think that that's actually a significant moment. Actually, I see, Madeline, that you have your hand up.
Yes, well, someone can fill me in on this. My general impression is that this was not really the life he wanted. He wanted more of a stable life. He wanted to be more like Aristotle to Alexander. And instead he ended up kind of teaching in various places, but he really wanted to make a big mark somewhere. And, didn't realize that the mark he made was not as a policymaker, but as a teacher whose sayings and anecdotes got collected by his students and their students and then handed down for several thousand years.
That's interesting. Yeah, we're kind of taking it for granted that this is, his ability to accept what has taken, place in his life as kind of an ideal. And I think that may be overstating it as well. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Let me comment on based on analytics. The most life-changing, most biggest event for him probably at the time, 70 years old. His student, his favorite student, Yan Hui, died. Okay, so I'm not saying, I don't know what the truth is, but according to analytics, that's really broke his heart. So not much about his son died, but about the Yan Hui, his favorite student died, just based on the analytics. And another account about, I think Brian mentioned about the father-son relationship. We will read later. I don't want to have a father like Confucius, because there's a description on Confucius stand on the courtyard and his son Li passed by. Okay, and his son doesn't just like today's kids just walk through. They have like fast walk, because if they don't walk slowly, in front of your dad, so they fast walk, and then Confucius say, "Come, did you study the book of riches?" Okay, and he said no, so he go back to study. And I don't know when later, the next time he passed by, Confucius said, "Did you study the book of document?" He said no. Then go back to study. So that's the account he talked about this. So the description is that's his father-son relationship. But again, that's just based on the analytic record. Yeah.
That's interesting, because there's such a devotion to one's parents, throughout the Analects, that he would, not necessarily have an ideal relationship with his own father is that's an interesting point. I see Brian or Penny.
It's me.
Hey.
Oh, I actually was just kind of along the lines of what you were talking about. Was my comment was that it seems like one of the underpinning rules that he's trying to teach his students, is about filial piety, and that's kind of a basis for society. But his father died when he was 3,
Right.
and so he did not personally really have the experience of being an obedient son for all these years and reflecting what had happened to him. I mean, he had his mother until he, was pretty grown up, I think, by that period of time. But he didn't have a father. So that was, I think, a reflection kind of the societal cultural ideas. But he did not really experience it.
That's interesting as well. And if I remember correctly, I have to look back, but you're supposed to mourn your children for 3 years, or parents, forgive me, parents for 3 years after their death. And I wonder if that had an impact on him. And now I understand that up until 3 years old, that was the age that we've talked about this in the past. Up until 3 years old, you're really not able to take care of yourself. But I wonder if there's any relationship between that mourning 3 years and his father dying when he was actually 3, and as well. Anyway,
well, actually, that's a good point to talk about the next 4 section, 4 chapter, which is about the filial piety. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that's a good. And I think I see Madeline has a hands up.
Yes, Madeline. And then we'll go.
Yeah. Penny, I thought that was really quite profound about his father and his emphasis on filial piety, because it's very easy to idealize something that we see that other people have that we don't have and might never have had. And so perhaps it was easy for him to think that filial piety was important and perhaps easier than it is because he didn't really have the opportunity to do it himself.
Interesting. Interesting. Thank you, Madeline. Fantastic comments, everyone, and very much appreciate them. So shall we attempt to go ahead and do verses 5, 6, 7, and 8?
Yeah, I think that they already, it's very unusual for analect group, same subject together. So
Okay.
that the group these four together. So that probably not a bad idea to read these four and then see how does Confucius interpret the meaning of xiao, which is filial piety.
Xiao is X-A-I-O, just a, yeah.
X-I-A-O.
X-I-A-O, okay.
Yeah. So, or you want to call it the filial piety.
Okay, Penny, would you mind reading verses 5, 6, 7, and 8?
Yeah, that's fine.
Thank
I guess
you.
I'll read them from the James Legge
Okay.
first. Main one asked what filial piety was. The master said, "It is not being disobedient." Soon after, as Fan Che was driving him, the master told him, saying, "Mangsun asked me what filial piety was, and I answered him, not being disobedient." Fan Chi said, "What did you mean?" The master replied, that parents when alive be served according to propriety, that when dead, they should be buried according to propriety, and that they should be sacrificed to according to propriety. Mang Wu asked what filial piety was. The master said, parents are anxious lest their children should be sick. Tzu Yu asked what filial piety was. The master said, filial piety of nowadays means the support of one's parents, but dogs and horses likewise are able to do something in the way of support. Without reverence, what is there to distinguish the one support given from the other? And Zhu Xia asked what filial piety was. The master said, the difficulty is with the countenance. If when their elders have any troublesome affairs, the young take the toil of them, and if when the young have wine and food, they set them before their elders, is this to be considered filial piety?
Thank you so much, Penny. Would anybody else like to read their version? Go ahead and type exclamation point in the chat. Will. Thank you, Penny.
Okay. Okay, here we are. Meng Yizi asked about filial piety. The master said, never be disobedient. Fan Chi was driving and the master informed him of the conversation, saying, Meng Sun asked me about filial piety, and I replied, never be disobedient. Fan Chi asked, what did you mean by that? The master said, when your parents are alive, serve them according to ritual propriety. When they are dead, bury them according to ritual propriety. Offer sacrifices to them according to ritual propriety. Meng Wu Bo asked about filial piety. The master said, let your parents worry about nothing other than your illness. Zi Yo asked about filial piety. The master said, nowadays, filial piety refers to being able to attend one's parents. However, even dogs and horses attend people. Without reverence, what is there to distinguish them? Xia asked about filial piety. The master said, managing one's facial expression is the difficulty. When there is work to be done, the young undertake the labor. When there is wine and food, they serve these to the seniors first. Is this enough to be considered filial piety? All right.
Thank you very much, Will. Excellent. You know, actually the translations for these are actually a little bit closer than they have been in the past. So that's interesting in its own right. Suki, I see you typed exclamation point in the chat. I'm going to let Jason share the screen first, and then we'll come back to you. You'll be able to make you know, whatever observations or comments. Is that
Well, I
okay?
want to read another translation.
Oh, okay. If you want, no, please do. Okay.
Oh, sorry, I saw the okay.
No,
So,
please.
Okay. Meng Youzi asked about being filial. The master responded, do not abandon the rights. When Fan Qi was driving the chariot, the master told him about this conversation, saying, Meng Su asked me about filiality, and I replied, do not abandon the rights. Fan Qi asked, what did you mean by that? The master said, when your parents are alive, observe the rites in serving them. When they die, observe the rites in burying them. Observe the rites in sacrificing to them. Meng Wubo asked about being filial. The master said, give your parents no cause for worry other than your illness. Ziyou asked about being filial. The master said, nowadays, this is taken to mean being able to feed your parents, but dogs and horses can do as much. If you are not respectful, how are you different? Zixia asked about being filial. The master said, the difficult part is the facial expression. As for the youngest, taking on the burden when there's work to be done, and the older ones being served first when there is food and wine. Can this be called filial conduct? Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Suki. I very much like that translation, especially I believe it was verse 5. Jason.
Yeah, I think that's great. Everyone have almost the same translation, you know, and then it's not difficult. But I think the challenge here probably, I believe probably a lot of people may have a concern about. 4 chapters, different person ask the same question, and the Confucius gives a totally different answer on that. So I think we need to know a little bit the background of the person, then we will understand why Confucius answered this way and get an idea what Confucius means as xiao, filial piety. So 2.5. Okay, Meng Yi Zi. Here has a Zi, okay, and then, but here, remember, this Zi doesn't mean Mr. or like You Zi or You Zi, something like as his student writing as Mr. No, this one is his title. So Meng is the family name. During that time, the state of Lu, the power of the state being controlled by 3 families. Okay, so that's called Meng. Meng is one of them. Okay, so Confucius, Meng Yizi is Confucius' early or probably the first student when Meng Yizi was young. Remember, I put the biography. Confucius was 16 years old. He tutored Meng Yizi, and I believe Meng Yizi probably younger, 10 years old, I don't know, to teach him about it. So right now, Meng Yizi is older, is become probably in charge of the family business. So put this one as a background. Meng Yizi is Confucius' student long time ago. Okay, so they this kind of relationship. So Meng Yizi asked about Xiao, the filial piety. The master answered, never disobey. So here he means not, a lot of people interpret as never disobey your parents. So a lot of parents, Chinese parents, will quote this one, say, never disobey me. But actually, according to the Confucius here, is never he only say never disobey. But for the further interpretation, you know, he means never disobey the ritual. Okay, doesn't mean never disobey your parent. Okay, so that's a common misunderstanding in the Chinese or the Asian society. So Fan Ci was driving the master's chariot. Okay, Fan Ci, that's probably the first time you see this student. This student had been considered as a little bit, we should say, not that smart, because he always asks further questions. He never like before, like 直下, okay, Confucius say, oh, if I say something and then you know the next thing. No, he's a person like whenever Confucius say, he has asked further questions because he doesn't understand. But because of him, we can understand much more about Confucius' teaching. So Fan Ci was driving Confucius' chariot, and the master told him, Meng Sun, okay, actually Meng Sun is his family name. So he, instead of telling Meng Yizi, so basically the same thing, he said, Meng Sun asked me about Xiao, the pilot, and I replied, never disobey. Fan Ci asked, of course, he will ask, what do you mean? Confucius said, when the parents are alive, serve them according to Li, which is ritual. When they are dead, bury them according to Li, and offer sacrifice to them according to Li. So Li is the teaching about the Meng Yizi. Remember, Meng Yizi is the highly the powerful family who control the government of state of Lu. So here he talk about Li. Why he talk about Li so much, the ritual? Because you serve your parent, especially offer the sacrifice to your passed away parents, your dead parents. You have to according to Li, or the funeral service should be according to Li. Confucius implied, don't do too much, okay? Because they are so powerful. Sometimes they're doing too much because they are very powerful. So I think that's the reason Confucius have this kind of answer. Everything should according to the ritual, the Li, not too much. Don't overstep the boundary, okay? Because you are only in this level. You are not the Lord of Lu. You just a family, okay, been underneath Lu, okay, the state. So you don't overstep. That's why he keep emphasizing about the ritual. Second one, Meng Wubo asked about Xiao. Okay, again, Meng Wubo is the son, okay, the first son of Meng Yizi, the previous one. So he's come with another younger person. Okay, he's Confucius' student's son. And we know he is the first son because it's interesting, okay? In the Chinese naming, the first son you will call Bo. If somebody's name have Bo, he's the number one son. If your name have Zhong, okay, like Confucius, his name called Zhong Ni, okay, so he's number two. Okay, if you are the number three, you call Su. If you are number four, you call Ji. So by the name, you probably know your ranking in your family. So Meng Wubo is the first son of Meng Yizi. Okay, so Confucius' answer is parents' only concern is about your health. Okay, I just translate just word by word, and they have the two opinions on this. Okay. One is, remember, he's a noble family, so a lot of things they don't have to worry. So the only thing they worry is, so there's two interpretation. Keep health, okay? Be healthy, okay? Don't let your parents worry about your health, okay? So that's one answer. Another answer is being good, okay? Behavior, well behaved. So only thing your parents need to worry is your health. So that's based on the words, the Chinese word. There's two different kind of interpretation. Personally, I prefer the second one because I think during that time, getting sick probably the unavoidable. Okay, and Confucius probably not talk too much about keeping you health. So he probably means behave well. So therefore, your parents only worry about your health. Okay, so that's my the preferred answer I have. 2.7, 2.7, Ziyu, that's another person. Remember, Ziyu is not noble person. Ziyu is very young, and he probably has low brain up. And some records say he's probably Confucius' youngest disciple, and he has a low brain up. So somebody say he even been a criminal, and then some. But anyway, it's not a very aristocracy. It's a common poor student. So he asked Xiao, okay, the filial piety. Confucius' answer is different, okay, because he's not rich. The master said the Xiao nowadays means supporting one's parent, but dog and horses likewise are able to do something in this way of support. Without reverence, what is the difference? So right now you can imagine, for a poor or low upbringing person, his concern of Xiao, he taking care of parents, is give them food, right? Your parents never get hungry, they get cold. So that's my job. So Confucius told him, that's not enough, because what you are doing to your parents, just like a dog and a horse doing to you. Are you going to call your dog, your horse, has a shout to you? No, because you need reverence. You have to respect your parents. Okay. Another one, 子夏. If you were in, I think last week, we talked about 子夏, right? Very smart. And then he was poor when he was young, and then become rich. Okay, when he make a lot of money. Remember, I think in the previous section, he talked about like, you were not flattered when you was poor, and when you get rich, you are not proud, arrogant. Is that good? Confucius said, no, it's not good enough. Then Confucius said, yeah, you are so smart, right? You can start to learn literature, the book of poetry. Okay, so that's the person. So he asked Xiao again, okay. Remember, he probably too proud, too arrogant, okay, and because he's smart, he learned a lot of things. So master said, the difficulty is one's facial expression, okay. The youth provide the physical service when the elder have needs, and let them have food and wine first at the meal. Is this enough to be considered as xiao? So that's a question, right? Because you can imagine a person was poor but making more money, and right now he want offer something to their parent. He can afford good food, hire the servant, do all the good things for their parent. So he asked about xiao. That's a Confucius answer. Your facial expression. What's your attitude to your parent? So I think that's give you a very good, these four different person give you a very good understanding what Confucius' idea of xiao, filial piety, to different person. Yeah, that's all I need to say. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Jason. Thank you for those comments. There's a lot to discuss here. So if anybody would like to make a comment about verses 5 through 8. Please type exclamation point in chat or raise your hand in Zoom. Suki.
Yeah, I want to share one about the only concern about health. I want to see if I can share this. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah. So the sickness or the health that word in Chinese is this ji. So the character is formed with a person, but get an arrow to his body. So my inspiration, if it's from the very old meaning of this word, that could be mean let your parents only worry about you get hurt from war. Maybe it's protecting your country. It's like for if you are in a war and you got hurt, that's the only thing you want them to worry about. So it's just a very a small part I want to share. That's a Chinese word in that sentence.
Interesting. So it was talking, Jason, what do you think that it was speaking about physical health primarily?
I don't know. Because he talked about the G. I think Suki is right. Based on the word means get hurt by the word. So it could be implied don't get killed. But it has many meaning. I don't know. But just like based on, I just look at the Chinese word and they have the two meaning at least. One is be safe. Okay, be safe. Don't let your parents worry. Or you can say is behave well. So only thing your parents worry is you get sick or you get hurt. So I think that's a two way to think about this. Yeah.
Thank you. Kevin.
It just follow got two words. One is called ji, that's the ji, another called bing, ji bing. Bing maybe that's a physical body word. Basically, you got sick. That one is Suki is right. Original from it's a worried state, right? Don't forget if only a son go be in the war zone, yeah, definitely that's you can think about the parents' feeling, and yeah, it's a beautiful. I just learned too, from Jason and everybody else translation about this show of filial piety, right? So it's beautiful. It's different. If you rich people, for example, you are this you are a rich man, the son. How do you do the show? It's based on respect and ritual. That's enough. They don't need you feed the food or something else. But for poor one, yeah, it's hard. Then you need to feel the food and support, right? You really need a support and necessity. But it's Confucius said that's enough. But the last one very important. 色男. It's like facial expression direct.
Yes.
But that's lost the meaning. Because yeah, you see you facial, if you basically you give me a smiling face, right? That's for the parents, that's enough. You don't let's going, even you give me food, but you give me hard feeling, so it's not happy end. So that's the most important. By the way, I'll share one quick story. 20 years ago, I've been in Canada. My landlord, about 80 years old, he got 3 kids. I heard it's 3 sons. I never heard one call, never see a visit, even one. Only his wife also, take care of him. For me, that's opposite of show, opposite of filial of piety. That's first time give me different think about Western, how about the show. That's why you see this word missing, this show, right? We use filial piety 2 words instead to try to explain. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Jason, did you want to respond?
No,
Oh, I
think
thought I saw you.
I try not to respond on the current situation.
Okay. So
By the way, I try, apply to this state. For me, right, reading those books, yeah, I respect, we try original meaning. That's Jason bring up, try stay with it. Also, what we learn from it, because what we from Tao to analyst, we see something like not practical. It's the opposite what we practice, or opposite how we return. It's like who it's kind of he's upside down, not brain. It's but it have meaning. Is practical or not? That's different. But the psychological thinking, it makes sense. By the going to one example, for example, if it's a tree or animal, animal they help each other. Even parents they died, they're going to follow kids, living for the generation, and also like sometimes kids they help the parents too for the tree themselves. If they need a little bit of water, they alive. That's you from Tao to Confucius. I feel they learn from nature, then abstract from nature. That's why you see I raise you. How do you fit back? That's a little bit traditional logic. When we are toddler, we raised by parents. When they are old, that's our time payback. Thank you.
that is interesting, and I do, after I see Will has typed exclamation point in the chat, but I do want to talk about some of the differences between the Tao and Confucius, and specifically when we're talking about the nature itself. But Will.
I just want to say something about ritual propriety. I took a class on this subject or on Chinese philosophy a couple of years ago, and the professor's take on ritual propriety was that we think of like etiquette and rules as kind of like stifling, but actually in this teacher's interpretation of it, it's like the ritual propriety, it sort of severs us from our bad habits, and so that we have like more freedom to actually kind of like pick and choose and be open to different like navigating situations in the best way. So it was just a really interesting take on it. So that was just my 2 cents on that, but that I found really fascinating. Thanks.
I agree with you. That's a great comment. And because I have seen ritual propriety actually be very effective in certain situations. It kind of prevents you from it prevents you from maybe necessarily kind of acquiescing to some of your desires that you actually want to do, and ritual it kind of there's a certain reminder that comes along with it of what is important, and so the ritual kind of emerges for a reason, and it actually is serving a purpose. I think the difficulty comes when you're only following the ritual and not necessarily thinking about why you're following the ritual in the first place. That's when it becomes a challenge, and you begin, as to follow, to serve the ritual itself, as opposed to kind of serving what the purpose of the ritual is. So and that happens quite often. People will just do something because it's always been done that way, and not necessarily think about why they're doing it in the first place. So there's a reason it exists, but at some point, maybe that ritual is no longer something that's necessary. I also believe, as I agree with you as well, that these constraints that we kind of don't necessarily need to see them as constraints as well. These constraints are kind of learning to function within a system. Now, what does that mean for individual freedom and self-discovery? I think that can be stifling, but it also can be liberating in its own right. So, Jason, I see you.
Yeah. Since we talk about Xiao, I think it's like before in the Tao Te Ching reading, we talk about the Taoism lifestyle. I still keep the same opinion. If you have to compare the Western world and the Asian today, I don't see American or Western is less Taoism lifestyle than Asian. According to my observation, okay, I don't see American, where that's the place I live. I should not comment on Europe. American are less xiao than Asian society. Okay, that's my observation. I think it's just different way, okay, of treating your kids and treating your parents. I do see a lot of Americans doing very good job, okay, to do xiao without reading one word of Confucius. And I also see a lot of people in my country not doing xiao by memorize the entire Confucius analog. So I be honest, I don't see if you say American is not xiao, and then Chinese are much or Asian are much more xiao. In my heart, I disagree. Okay, and another thing is your behavior. And again, book is book. Really depend how are you going to do it. So that's my opinion. If you ask me to comment, if we have to compare these two words, so case by case. That's my opinion. So that's why I try not to comment, because what I see always just limited.
Very wise comments indeed. Thank you for those. I see Kevin has his hand up. Kevin?
Oh, sorry.
No
I
problem.
saw. Yeah. Yeah, I always encourage Jason share your own thought about modern days observation, because he know both east west side, and for me, I agree with him. This from individual, of course, different. Yeah, it's you see, for example, I got my son teammate parents. The man side, the grandma, mother, every night, either himself or his wife live in different house. That's happened in Western lots. But Western, I very see normally you want to live yourself, live yourself. Otherwise, you come to my house, or go to the elderly, house. For me, this one is we talk about another angle is tradition. For example, if I call Joseph, right, this first name, if we consider this one first name not, it's like we are equal, maybe are your classmate or my friend, we can call that. If we can call the parenthood or their friend, they are called the first name. This is one different. You can see we normally call a little bit, uncle or kind of thing, basically shows respect for it's kind of show or affiliate. Thank you. By the way, it's proposed of that the Chinese word two part, top and bottom. Old man with long hair is the top part. Bottom part of the child. Sorry about. Yeah.
Thank you, Kevin. So there is one question I had about, and I'm looking for the exact quote, Jason, about where is it? Being taught by animals.
Supported by animal.
Yes, yes. Can you expand a little bit on that? I know that you're mentioned in your comments that it's about how we treat inferior beings.
No, this one is not saying we treat inferior being. It talk about treat your superior beings. Okay, so he's talking about. Let's go back to the text. Let me see. Okay, let me show the text just one more time. Okay, that's another thing. Let me show this. So you talk about this one. Okay, 子游 ask about 孝. Confucius said today's 孝 means you can support one's parent. Okay, so parents, you're superior.
Okay.
Then he used the metaphor.
Okay.
Your dog and the horse also support you. Okay, without the reverence, what is the difference? He's talking about you support your parents without the reverence, without respectful. What's the difference? Then the dog and the horse support you. Okay, so right now it's not talking about treating the inferior. It's talking about treating the superior. Okay. I think you may have a different translation.
I
They
do.
may translate this one, the yang, okay, as a feeding. So we talk about you feed your animal, and then what's the difference? I think that's wrong, because in this sentence, they are talking about supporting your, Confucius talking about supporting your superior. Okay, so he talked about the animal also support. Because remember, at that time, dog and the horse is not your pet. They have the dog and the pet, and the horse have the dog and the horse support you, not have the dog and have my pet, so I can take care of the dog and the horse. I think that's a different concept. So I hope I answered your question.
You did very much so. So thank you for that. Kevin, did you read?
Yeah, I raised it again. Basically, I did.
Good.
My point is here is even from a dog to here, and especially I would say other books. Why we have to use either or, right? You have to pick a choice or opposite way. Can we do both? Can we balance off two opposite, yin and yang? Don't forget, yin, if the yang without the yin, you cannot exist. If the yin without the yang, you didn't not appear. That's one of cycle in the world. We have sun, we have a moon. You try opposite. We have man, woman. Always that's about traditional Chinese logic. Always they try search opposite of truth. Or maybe this little bit of Western translation. They say, okay, you want a table, you got a top, you also got bottom, right? So you got a face like a one coin. You got a head, or also got a tail. Can you only appear head without a tail? Normally, we only saw the tail. We ignore saw the head, ignore the tail. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Brian, please.
I just thought I would add something here as regards the word Li, and then also something about dogs. The Li, a couple things about Li. The ritual, I'm not quite sure how it plays out in the Analects, or how it was understood in those times in China. But it sounds like it's related to Li is related to ritual, and to me that means courtly, or it includes courtly rituals, the things that the royalty and aristocracy do. And that reminds me just when I was living in Europe, I learned the French word for ritual is, well, in everyday life is politesse. Politesse being polite. And courtoisie, those courtoisie relates even literally to the court, and France was a courtly culture and fairly early centralized, and they developed these formulas for living in court based on the role that you played. There were strict hierarchies, and this behavior, the politesse, just made it possible to operate in a less with less friction in routine or casual encounters. That really was the point of it, and that's the point of it today in France. So if you go to, well, in my experience, and I've lived in France a fair amount, if you go to France and you don't know the French politesse, they're flabbergasted. They don't know how to deal with you because they know how to do these casual and routine things in a ritualized fashion. And if you don't know that, then they don't know how to deal with you. And the same as in Germany, being polite or acting in a ritualized fashion is called Höflichkeit, and that's a direct Höf. The Höf, das Höf is that's where the royalty lived, and so you behave like the people did in the courts. And I have the impression here, because we're talking about aristocracies and warring states and close to governments, that it's a very similar situation. The other thing I'll say about rituals, a little bit from a completely different angle, is that the Native Americans, the rituals that we're familiar with are more clearly related to the learning they did from nature and the learning from animals. And they watched animals as they migrated. The thinking is, as they migrated south out of Alaska over the Bering Strait, they entered different climate zones and saw different animals, and they learned from the animals how to live in that environment. So the rituals started out as included a way of repeating these lessons from animals, the dancing and the rituals, and also as a way to thank and even to worship these animals for the learning and in effect the life they departed to the Indians or the Native Americans. Now the last thing about dogs, I don't think Confucius gives dogs the credit they deserve. And probably not horses either. But again, Mark Twain comes into play here. Mark Twain has a quote about dogs, and he said that luckily for humans, entry into heaven is not determined by merit; it's determined by grace. If it were determined by merit, the only people in heaven would be dogs.
Excellent comments, especially I liked the comments regarding how to interact with different cultures and how they view rituals. There was a different meetup that I actually had led on basically this model that was looking at how different cultures, how they rely on rituals, and I'm forgetting the category off the top of my head, but it was called the Hosted 6D model. And there are these 6 dimensions that they assessed, and they looked at some of these more ritualistic cultures, like Greece would be one of them, where in order to really kind of interact with the culture in a meaningful way, understanding their rituals was actually much more important than, say, something less like in the United States, where rituals necessarily still have a role, but not quite as important in order to interact with the culture. So there's this is like, this is something that's kind of, what captures a lot of what you were saying about whether it be the Germans or the French along those lines. They were also considered much more ritualistic in nature as well. So great comments. So Kevin, thank you for those comments, Brian. They were excellent. Kevin, followed by Will.
Yeah, go follow Brian about the. Did you remember we in dog store dog? I cannot bring out right
Oh
today.
yes, I remember. Yeah.
If we consider maybe the kind modern way, maybe it's negative. It's neutral. Stay neutral. So if from nature, that's by nature. However, yeah, in the Confucius, animal, human start separate even more. Virtue and other and 仁义礼智信, right? There's lots of put on a human being behavior and mind. That's here for ourselves. That's mean how. One thing we don't forget, that's 2,000 years in Chinese culture, so already something different. We valued slowly a little bit close to Western life. That's something we missed. Don't need to judge it's good or bad. Also, one thing, don't overuse or abuse the rules or whatever you believe. For example, this show. That's why I think I really Jason's mind, but it's hard to see. It's a Western good or or here good. So but you how do you use it? What's your heart? If you only say self-centered, self-belief, self-ego, and then what I would say, yeah, that's show down for sure doesn't work. How about it's work for our modern contemporary days in Western? It's got a challenge too. And you thought you win by yourself. Actually, as the individual plus the individual, we lost. Most of our lost. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Excellent comments. Will.
Well, I thought it was really interesting what Brian said about the French court rituals and how it just leads to a lot less friction in just everyday interactions. And maybe that's, I think Confucius talks about harmony as the goal of ritual. So that kind of relates. Also, I'm just thinking like United States, we're such a multicultural society that
Yes.
We don't probably have as many rituals just because everyone comes with their, people come from so many different places with their own sets of rituals, but in order to all interact, we kind of have to let go of some of the rituals that our grandparents would have
Sure.
practiced where they came from. But
And there's evidence to support that assertion that you're actually making. In the sense that many people feel like our individualism is based on the fact that you're integrating with the rest of society, so that you're forgoing what traditional values that you may have actually had. I mean, you still hold them, but you don't hold them as dear as your grandparents did. Primarily because you're integrating into a new society that's actually highly individualistic. And so there's actually been studies based on this as to why other cultures may be, in certain cases, more collective. Specifically, I think there was one study that was in Sweden that did a study on immigration and the types of individuals that immigrated to the United States, and So there's that same model that I was talking about, the Hofstede model, is something that that is an area that they actually covered, and it is actually, some of it says in their assertion was that it kind of underpins what some of the individualistic behaviors that we have in the United States. So just some thoughts about that. But yeah, it's a very interesting comment, because if you think about rituals, there's an importance there that you're adhering to some kind of tradition, and so that there's this, respect that it and Confucius talks about that obviously throughout the Analects. So I'll go to Brian next.
So I want to talk about the definition of filial piety. It's a question I had, and Jason said we'll have to wait, and it's hard to define. And I think that continues to be true here. But the one thing that is suggested to me from the questions and answers is that the word filial piety already existed in the environment Confucian was living in. Just like yin and yang already existed, people understood that term. And what he's answering here on these questions is not a blanket generalized definition, but it's an application of the Wu Wei as appropriate to different circumstances for different people. And that if that at all is a good understanding, that's really opening my eyes to what Confucius is doing here in these books.
Jason, would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, thank you, Brian. I think yeah, that's a good reminder. Actually, Confucius is not Confucians. Okay, his tradition is so-called Ru. Okay, which has been long tradition, before Confucius' time. Second, I'd like to answer about the filial piety. Xiao have been here, and the Ren, okay, been there for many times. Ren is 100 times. Xiao, I don't know how many times, but that's the two most frequent used word. Of course, yes, Confucius time, everybody know these two words. And Confucius probably give them, number one, just like Brian said, give them a practical explanation, how to, not what is. So I think that's number one. I think number two, personally, some people may disagree, but I think that's the way. Confucius use xiao and ren, these two words, to answer political question, because during that time is the spring and the autumn, and they start to see, the social order is changed. Okay, you see remember that the royal court, it basically is the father and the son and the grandson, right? That's the feudal system. And then if you start to see the minister disagree with the lord, with the duke, that's the same situation as the son disagree with the father, right? So you can see Confucius tried to fix this problem by using the filial piety as a social structure. So I think that we need to put this one in the feudal system as a background. So if you see your minister against the duke or the lord, that would be similar to, and technically could be the same. That's your cousin or your relative, because that's a family-run business. So I think that's the background why xiao is important in Confucius' political philosophy. Yeah, that's the way I read it. And later time, especially today, people pick up this one. A lot of time we try to read like Confucius tell me, Jason, okay, how to behave, how to treat your parents. But I think during that time, his answer is political. He answered the political question with moral answer. So that's my point.
Very, very interesting. And thank you. So how far back does the idea of filial piety go? Where does it originate from? If you know, if not,
I don't know what's original of that, but I believe even in the Western culture, right? If you read the Platonic, okay, dialogue, they talk about, they don't use the word, they use the word filial in one dialogue, I remember. They use the word, and even in Homer's, the Odyssey,
yes,
you see how you treat your parent. I don't think this concept is not invented by Chinese. It's been there. Just how are we going to use it? And then how important it is, right? Is that more important than your personal honor? According to Odyssey, probably not. But
right.
according to Confucius, no, that's more important, your personal honor. I think that's the only difference to me.
It's more important than your personal honor for Confucian, right?
That's right. That's right. And your
Yes.
family are more important than your person, right? So,
Right.
and that would be different. Yeah. But are they important? Yeah, both sides will say they are important. Yeah.
There's something in later writings that I need to try to recall that may actually relate to this as well. And it has to do with the changing yourself before you change the world. And but it was Confucius's grandson, I think, that actually had written.
Yeah, that's the great learning. Okay, so that's in the great learning. So
Yes.
basically step by step, right, from yourself and to from change yourself, change your family, change your state, then change the world. So
Yes.
that's step by step. Yeah,
Yeah.
That's the idea. Yeah.
Thank you very much for that. So I have Penny, then Suki, then Kevin. Thank you.
Go
Thank you
ahead.
very much.
Oh,
Jason.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, when talking about the origin anyway of like shower filial piety or something like that. I mean, at least on the Western side, in the Judaic Christian tradition, I mean, it's one of the 10 commandments, honor your father and your mother.
That's correct. Yeah, that's right.
So that definitely would have been considered an underpinning of society at that time,
Now, it's a very important part of instilling a certain amount of order as well. It's kind of creates a hierarchical organization that you're still self-organizing, but it still creates a hierarchy that allows you to kind of structure a society around. So I think it's kind of bringing order to a certain amount of chaos. So, so I have, let me see, I'm sorry, Suki, forgive me, I forgot.
No worries. Yeah. I see why Chinese emphasize this concept is more about the energy balance, because when you were young, your parents raised you, so they put a lot of energy towards you. So at the end of their life, it's the opposite. You return that kind of energy. So it's like a circle. Otherwise, it will be one way energy, like only parents to the kids. But I think in China, we love the circle, we love the balance, we love the giving and taking. So it makes sense when they were old, the children should taking care of the parents. And also, maybe in English you have the same saying, like all the people actually is like all the kids. They behave more like a kid. So it's another kind of like a mirror the previous history. So there's some balanced energy make the whole yeah. I see it as just pure balance, giving and taking. Yeah.
That's a very interesting concept. Yeah, this idea of giving back to your parents, because in certain cases, at least in the West, especially, there is this kind of there's not as much as a feeling to give back to your parents, or not this feeling of responsibility. And I don't know. In many cases, parents may not want that as well. But in other cultures, yes, I mean, you see the idea that kind of bringing that balance and giving back to your parents because they've given you much of their life, that there does seem to be an element of justice in that concept, at least to me. Kevin.
Yeah, first about the how in Oracle Bone, we already see the word from Sukiak shared. That's been 3,000 years ago. They already have that word. It's just complicated, right? That's the meaning. If for me, I can't imagine if a human got some talent, they know when I get old, what's going to happen, right? So here's another one, another point, second point, but we already talk about the parents and son. How about the grandparents? How about the grandson? You not just respect your parents, you do it as role model for your son. That's generation by generation. You feel proud about that. And also this one, this is so commonplace still in Chinese culture. There's still parents and child. When I get old, you're going to doing good for with your partner, wife, or husband. Are you good to me? So it's like what joke is if mom and your wife all falling into the water, who's going to rescue first? A psychological question. Thank you.
Well, that's yeah, maybe that's a little bit, that's a challenge. I wouldn't know how to answer that. Actually being single, I know how to answer that, but
yeah,
so but that makes it a little bit easier.
It's not like we know you see our restaurant now, present, so important.
Yeah.
You need to know a little bit of past, predict a little bit of future. Not I'm gonna make that's a little now different. That's credit card is so complex in investing. It's you hard to make money from Eastern culture. They save money. So that's just ballpark, a little bit generalization, but in modern days, yeah, still kids a little different. Yeah.
Thank you. Brian. You're muted though.
I really like what Kevin said about knowing the past to learn a little bit about the future. Because I spend a lot of my time trying to learn about the past, at least what's written about it and the history. And it's really, I think it's really true. We live, if we look at it realistically, we live in one place at one time. The media's opened our eyes a bit to the broader what's happening in the world, but it's happening at this time. And if you go back in history, it's just amazing what you see in terms of continuity and change and different perspectives. It's like opening a window to not just a new world, but to many new worlds. And it just gives so many new dimensions to life and appreciation for life, and I guess some understanding of what's going to happen in the future too. But it really, really adds a lot. One thing that it does for me is a very liberating, that my context isn't the only possible context. It's not the only meaningful context. It's not the only context in which to understand things. And in studying history, I've kind of, in the Taoist way, kind of stripped away a lot of my immediate context and what's left is maybe more natural. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, and there was a comment that went in and out of my head that I was just gonna that had come to mind, and how this would actually relate to filial piety. In studying, it's
Yeah, it
yeah,
identifies
let's say,
different, studying the history and also other parts of the world, like different cultures that are right now. It opens your eyes to different
that's
possibilities of how to live.
and
It's,
Confucius himself actually had to do that, right? If you think about it, in the sense that his parents died at such a young age, and yet here he is writing about this importance of respecting your parents, and so he had to imagine this to a certain degree and understand it and taking context from other areas in order to kind of transfer it into to a philosophy. So yeah, I mean that and that is, it's like your story is not the only story. So that you're integrating all this, and that's what leads to wisdom, is the ability to take as many other look at the past and actually make it relevant to your present and the future as well. So I see Jason actually needs to go, so unless anybody has any other comments, I don't mind staying. But I will, if nobody else has any other comments, I will go ahead and make some quick announcements, specifically the Asian philosophies meetup that will be taking place this Saturday. Looks especially interesting. Philosophy, science, and religion in the first century. And would you like to actually just talk about that for your last couple of minutes that you're here, Jason? And
Oh yeah,
um,
yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. But I think I find out that in the first century, it's a very interesting time, and a lot of people underestimate the importance of the first century. Not only in the Western world, right? We have the Jesus as a revolution, and in the Eastern side, actually, a lot of change development in the religion. Start same thing in China. Also developed a new religion like we all do the Taoism, but don't forget that another religious style is also developed during that time. And the Buddhism also transferred to China during that time. And a lot of scientific invention, paper making, earthquake, the study, a lot of things happened during that time. So it's a very interesting time, to spend some time to understand. That's what I like to make.
well, I'm very much looking forward to that. And that is on Saturday. I mean, those are always really, really pleasant and enjoyable and informational, like sessions. So, I mean, I think it's one of the best meetups. So I encourage everybody to sign up for Asian Philosophies. Tomorrow night we have here is using our intuition to solve real world problems on Comprehensivist Wednesdays. That's being hosted by my good friend Micah Morey, and that should be interesting as well. I always like the practical side of comprehensivism when we have our conversations. So that should be an interesting discussion tomorrow night. There is the evolving self, and that is, I don't know what chapter they're on. That will be Thursday at 7 p.m., led by Maritza and Joya. And then we have the Bhagavad Gita on Thursday at 9 p.m. And we'll be covering chapter 13. And we'll have the Bhagavad Gita on Friday as well, June 10th. and that'll be at 9 p.m. And this weekend, we have Yasuhiko. And I think that there's just something in the universe that won't allow me to attend these meetups, because I always have something that's conflicting with when Yasuhiko comes to speak, and it's very disappointing to me personally, because it's a treat when he is able to come and to speak with us. And that's on actually Sunday at 11 a.m. So I'm sorry about that. Actually, I got the date wrong there. So that's on Sunday at 11 or June 12th at 11 a.m. And so I'll be I have a prior commitment that I won't be able to attend. Anyway, thank you everyone, Suki, for your comments. I really appreciate Brian, Penny. Penny, thank you for reading as always. It's never the same if you're not here. So thank you. And
Thank you.
I appreciate it. And I hope to see everyone again soon, or next week, actually. So where we will unfortunately, Jason will not be here for the next 2 weeks. So but we have Amon that will be stepping in. So we should be okay with the translation. All right, everyone. Have a great evening.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
All right. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Right.